Now this means that Canty will play. You heard last night he wouldn't play. Tony Davis has been here with us in our studio, says he hears that he will play. So at this stage you'd want to be knowing one way or the other, wouldn't you?
It's a game. Well, it's a game of cat and mouse. Are they going through the motions and just allowing Canty to do a fitness session and then say, look, we gave him the chance up to the last minute? I still don't think he can play with a grade 2 hamstring strain. I don't think it's possible.
You can put a person out on the field and put a jersey on him. Whether he's fit to play or not is a different thing. Because no matter if he has come back and his hamstring is now, he's missed 3 weeks of training.
He has. Would it simply be a case, Colm, of we'll chance him, if it's not going well, we have an option?
Surely. Well,
you can't bring him on during the match.
He is a leader of the team, and Cork haven't that many leaders. And even against Roscommon, when things were going, you know, they weren't going to lose the game or anything, but Canty was the one man who sort of got the team together and got them over the line.
All right, Pat, now you've talked to us already this summer about Cork and about some things that they do well, other things maybe they don't do quite as well.
Well, before we look at the piece of analysis, I mean, Cork have probably been the third best team in the country over the last decade. Why haven't they won in All-Ireland? I think mentally for a start, obviously they've had to face Kerry and Croke Park. The only team that has beaten them in the last 6 years is Kerry in Croke Park. So there's the mental thing. But I think outside of that, I think tactically they're a little bit naive and they're a little bit inept. And first thing, I think one of their plies in attack is to carry the ball out of defence. And as Limerick showed last year and this year, and Kerry showed again last year in the All-Ireland final and this year, that if you stop them counteracting, if you stop the extra man, they're limited. Now this year they've got worse because they're doing the hand passing, but they're doing it slow, ponderous, lateral.
That's deadly.
You saw a hand pass back to Quirk. Quirk got 4 back passes in the quarter final. Now at this stage there's about a dozen passes and they've reached the halfway line. That's number one. Now in those clips as well, what we've seen is the half forward line playing too deep. That's the second thing. Is in the second half against the half-forward line of Pearse O'Neill here, Paddy Kelly and Jimmy Kerrigan. Look, Kelly is the fittest guy in the Cork team. Kerrigan is the fastest guy in the Cork team. And O'Neill is probably the strongest guy. And where they're at their best is when they play as half-forwards, running at a defence, like they did against Roscommon. Cork scored 1-8 in the final 20 minutes. So what do Cork have to do? If they play that slow, ponderous hand passing game, the Dublin players will be back in numbers. And number two, if they're half forward and are playing too deep, same thing, they're playing into Dublin's hands. So what Cork have to do is they have to move the ball quick, long, kick it, and play with a bit more urgency.
Colm, Pat mentioned Alan Quirk there, the Cork goalkeeper, Stephen Cluxton, obviously the Dublin goalkeeper. You've been looking at the two goalkeepers in actual fact, the contrast of the kickouts that they employ and what they're trying to achieve with their kickouts.
Stephen Cluxton normally he'll kick short, he'll kick long, and you know, a goalkeeper gets more kicks of the ball in a game than any other player, so they need to use them better. And we saw with Cluxton against Tyrone, even though he kicked long a lot of the time, he also kicked with purpose. He just didn't lash it out in the middle of the field. And Dublin won most of their own kickouts. Now I know they let Tyrone have all their own kickouts in that game, which to me looked very foolish, but Cork don't mind long kickouts into the middle of the field because they have a whole series of giants around there, and Nicholas Murphy being one of them and Alan O'Connor, and they're both excellent fielders. And also you have a lot of power around that half back line, Paddy Kissan coming in on the breaks, and generally speaking, even against the best of teams, they can dominate possession on kickouts, so they won't mind kicking it long and just fighting for it, while Dublin will be looking to play it short.
Which makes a big difference tactically, Michael, because it means that whereas Tyrone, which I thought was a massive boost for Dublin, Tyrone are kicking to the corner back all the time and the Dubs are in position. Cork are going to be landing the ball 80 yards out. They're the best team in the country at winning the ball out there. I've never seen anyone better. And I mean, the ball's going to be over Ger Brennan's airspace from day one, which means that immediately there's going to be pressure coming down the centre of that Dublin defence.
But what is
so
very
Dublin are
surprising,
going to have the time to sort of set up the way they had against Tyrone.
In the clip that Colm showed, you showed Nicholas Murphy catching a load of high ball. I cannot understand. And he played superb when he was introduced in the second half against Roscommon. He's a fantastic fielder. And I can't understand why Aidan Walsh is preferred to Nicholas Murphy, because I thought Cork in the second half managed to end up with the best 15 on the team.
Colin, just looking at the two teams back, they're out on the field now for this All-Ireland semi-final, and you know, one thing that we've been saying about Dublin this year is, and as the championship has gone on, they've shown a sense of purpose about themselves, especially when they come to Croke Park, that they're here to do business, not here to be playing to the gallery as maybe might have happened in the past.
Yeah, well, there was a very dramatic change after the mauling they got against Meath when Meath scored 5 goals. And you know, both teams have changed quite a lot. I think I was looking at the Dublin team from that day, and I think there's either 5 or 6 changes on the starting 15 today from that team. So like, not only have they changed from the beginning of the year, they've changed quite dramatically as the campaign has unfolded, and the same is true of Cork as well. But what they have now, I think, is most important. They've David Henry and Brian Cullen. They've 2 extra defenders, and it was very interesting here against Tyrone. When Tyrone men got the ball in the middle of the field, the Dublin half-backs actually didn't bother to tackle them. They ran back to support their own full back line, and it was up to Cullen and Henry and the midfielders to pick up the players in that area.
Okay, we're going to take a short break here on the programme. Back with more.
There, Dara, they're certainly wearing a new look this year. I think gone is the swashbuckling gung-ho approach that we've seen in the past, and we have a much more pragmatic Dublin this year. I think defensively they're very solid, obviously with the 2 wing backs coming back, but at midfield in particular, I think Michael Dara McCauley has been the inspiration. I've really been taken by his tackling, his link play and his work rate. And above all that, I think he's a wonderful temperament. Now up front then, you know, physically very strong, particularly mobile, and in general don't foul very much. At midfield, I think they've gone for mobility rather than for experience, in particular with O'Connor and Nathan Walsh. But I think it's the half-forward line that I like the look of. And Pearse O'Neill in particular, like he has these panzer-like runs to the middle. He loves attacking the middle, and apart from being a good ball winner, he has wonderful vision. And I think he can lift Cork above the ordinary.
Contribute any few scores on a regular basis.
Joe?
Well, I mean, I think increasingly, I was thinking about him during the week, and I think he might go on to be the greatest forward that Dublin have ever produced. I mean, he broke through against Tyrone, really, and carried the scoring burden, you know, in a very, very high-octane game. He's a marvellous finisher. He kicks off both feet. He's very, very quick. He's a great instinct. He's difficult to mark now because he's coming out the field and then running from deep towards the goals. You know what I mean? I was thinking during the week of Rock Keane and all those guys, you know, and there's no doubt that Bernard Brogan is stepping into that sort of company the way he's playing.
Well, I suppose he's been in it. If Dublin had been going better in some of those championships for a couple of years. Colin, Daniel Goulding, Martin mentioned him there in his assessment of the team for Cork. And Cork have a good forward division, but Goulding is also very critical to the way they play. Yeah,
well, both the forward lines are a bit lopsided in that they're dependent on one man in particular, and Goulding has scored 130 in this year's championship, and Donnacha O'Connor is the next highest scorer with 11 points. So, like, you know, he scored a goal and 19 points more than the next highest. Now, of course, quite a bit of that comes from free, but you would think you'd have a better spread of scores. But you know, Goulding still has to do it at the highest level. You know, in the All-Ireland finals against Kerry and semi-finals, he just hasn't done it. And, you know, I know at half-time here